Alright, hey everybody, welcome to the next flip. This is a mid-century modern style desk that has a typewriter holder. I'm not sure what we're going to do with that. I'm probably going to restore it and hope that there's something nowadays that's more modern that we can use it for, because I don't know anybody that has a typewriter anymore. My main concerns here are all these stains, and now that I'm closer to this, I'm actually seeing there's a lot of chips in what looks like a veneer sheet over the top of this, so I'm not sure I'm going to be able to restore the top to a wood grain pattern unless I go with like a really dark stain potentially to mask a lot of this damage. So we may entertain that, but I'm not sure. But this will be the next flip. I will start stripping everything, see how everything looks, and then we'll go from there. So come along for the ride, and I'll walk you through it. And if you like this type of content, be sure to hit the like and subscribe buttons. It really helps me out and lets me keep doing this type of content for you all. Alright, let's give you all the quick tour. So we have this mid-century modern desk. I'm really worried about the top. It's got a lot of scrapes and these stains are my main concern. Otherwise, the rest of the body is in really good condition. Looks like it's all solid wood. So I'm hoping we get at least restore these bottom portions that are wood. If I can't get those stains out, I may have to end up sanding the top, but just wanted to give you all a walkthrough so you can see what we're working with, what the damage is. A lot of this, what you're seeing, is just dust from being in the garage. I really actually like this mid-century style hardware, so I'm probably going to keep and restore that. I don't have the key for the lock, but I did already order a replacement lock, so we'll get that in there. But yeah, so this will be what we're working with. Alright, so starting things off, I'm going to be getting all of this hardware off. We're going to toss this old lock and then take off all the handles and get them ready to get cleaned up. Now I have those on the stove in a pot, and I'm boiling them in a mixture of half water and half white vinegar. Once you take them out of the pot, they're going to look pretty bad, but that's when we break out the steel wool and scrub everything down so we can get them all looking new again. And here they are after everything's been scrubbed down, looking good. Alright, hey everybody, so I finished cleaning it with this wood cleaner, and I have to say I'm absolutely speechless. I'm surprised that those stains came out as I sprayed it on. Some of the stains that were there were just vanishing right in front of my eyes. I have never used this stuff before, so I wasn't sure what to expect, but I am super glad I took the chance to try it out, because this is something I can now work with without painting it. I will have to go with a darker color to cover up some of the coloration problems, but it's definitely not going to have to be painted, which I'm happy about. And the product I used, I was looking initially for oxalic acid, which is a type of bleach for wood. They didn't have any of that at Home Depot where I went, so I just got this. It's just an all-in-one wood cleaner from Behr. It was really cheap. It was $10 for the gallon, and it's supposed to have the oxalic acid ingredient, and man, it just worked amazingly. So on to the next step. We're going to sand all the rest of it down and start coloring this in. When I started sanding this down, I was using a pretty aggressive grit, going with a 120. I was just trying to get this down and get it as smooth as possible. I noticed some water damage had occurred, I believe, under the veneer, so the surface was almost a lumpy texture, and I was trying to smooth out as much of that as possible.
Next, I flipped the desk over to its back so I could access these bottom portions. There was a lot of splits along these, I think from drying out and cracking over time, so I'm just using a wood filler and a putty knife to fill those in. When flipping the desk, I noticed the top was really loose, and I saw that all these screw holes were actually missing all the screws which hold the top in place. So I'm just clamping this down, and I'm going to be replacing all these screws and getting that top secured.
Alright everybody, well, got everything sanded down. We swapped out some screws so that the top portion was more secure since I noticed it was pretty loose. Got all those screws replaced since there was mismatched screws everywhere. And yeah, did some last bit of wood filler and got it all taped up, and we're ready to start coloring the top. So once this dries after my cleaning, I am going to come through and we're going to start getting everything colored in. So let's get to it.
Now for staining this desk, I did end up getting a bigger brush because of the sheer size of this, and I'm using for the top a Varathane gel stain in the color Kona, and brushing that on there. I did end up having to go with 2 or 3 coats just to make sure I didn't have any of that yellow tone poking through. Once the stain on top had cured, I went ahead and transferred the tape up to that portion to protect it and started working on cleaning the bottom and getting it ready for staining. The wood filler on the legs still needed sanding, so I took care of that real quick as well. Then it was time to stain the bottom portion. I started working in this small cubby since while it was tilted, it was a lot easier to access. I will say that using a single brush to do this entire desk is quite the task, but I think the results were well worth it. Everything I stained ended up needing at least 2 coats, so I had to come back every now and then and touch up spots that were a bit too light.
I do want to stop and talk real quick because this is something that happens on occasion, but to be honest, I don't like how this is coming out. And that happens from time to time. Really, ultimately, this just has come out a lot darker than I wanted on the top mainly. I did want a really dark base, but the top, I wanted there to be a bit more contrast. Also, when the desk ends up not coming out, or when any piece ends up not coming out the way I like, it really kind of kills the momentum. This has probably taken me way longer than it needed to just because I was putting it off really. Oftentimes it still comes out really good, and I always tell myself somebody's going to like it. So yeah, just wanted to talk about that real quick. But we're gonna get this finished. It's almost all completed. I actually forgot some parts back here that I have to stain still, but then we'll get the hardware and figure out what to do with the drawers on the inside. So let's get to it.
These are the parts of the legs I missed because it was on the back and I couldn't reach these earlier. And now on to the final touches. I'm just spraying everything down in a water-based polyurethane. And I know I've mentioned it before, but this stuff gets very airborne and it's very important to wear a respirator when spraying this. Now just getting the new lock installed and all the rest of the hardware. Due to some staining inside the drawers, I decided to go ahead and line them. This by far is my least favorite thing to do in any restoration. Alright, so here we have the before. Not terrible aside from the top. And here we have the after. Everything is in this kind of satin jet black finish for the bottom, and then the Kona for the top, and all the hardware has been restored with the main lock being replaced. And after some light staging, here is what it looks like. Alright everyone, well that's the completed project. Ultimately it ended up coming out better than I expected. When I was going through the process, I wasn't really enjoying it all that much, and it wasn't coming out the way I had envisioned originally, but I just stuck through it until the end, and in the end it ended up coming out pretty good, I think. Definitely a lot darker than I expected, so hopefully it will still have some appeal to others that want more of a dark and cozier space for their office. It's significantly better than when I found it, so I hope it goes to a good home where it's going to be enjoyed. I also just want to say I'm sorry for the delay on this project and getting the video for you all. I actually have had my focuses elsewhere. I recently enrolled in a trade school of sorts, and I'll be doing an internship type thing soon, so I won't have as much time to dedicate to this stuff. Once all that becomes more of a rhythm, I'm sure I'll have more time and energy to put into my refurbishing and restoring of furniture and making videos for everyone. I do want to thank you all for watching though. Thanks for your patience on this one. If you like what I'm doing, drop a like, leave me a comment, and be sure to subscribe to see more of my content as it comes out in the future. Anyways, we'll see you on the next one. Take care everyone.